Tamo Muhal, welcome. Kutso, welcome. Cool. All right. So thank you for joining. Matsepo will be logging in shortly. I just quickly wanted to get the room full so that we don't embarrass ourselves on the other side. All right. So while we wait, welcome. I just quickly want to disable my phone on this side, guys. I can see everybody is in. I'm just going to leave this. Perfect. All right. So let's quickly see. Yes, Namond sent. Cool. All right, so there's more than one. Perfect. All right, cool. So there's a couple of people joining on one device. Awesome. So welcome everybody. So let's quickly see where Matsepo is, and then we can start the session. I'm going to open up my browser. Thank you for joining. Matsep, welcome. Welcome to the meeting. So there's a couple of students also on different devices. Matsep, can you hear us? Matsep, quick, can you just give us an indication if you can hear me via this channel?
Good day. Hello, everyone. Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. All right. So everybody, I just quickly want to do a quick introduction. So Matsepo is majoring in directing, and she's won a couple of awards, right, Matsep? On various festivals and so forth. So she's gonna just take us through her thought process when she starts with the director's treatment and all that. So we did have, Matsep, a brief overview of what a director's treatment is, but if you can maybe just give your insights on how you approach this specific element in filmmaking.
All right. Thank you so much, Yossi. I'm just gonna open my video so you can see me before I share my screen. Is that wow with you guys? There we go. Hi guys. This is me. My name is Matsepo, and as mentioned, yes, I'm a filmmaker, and I've in my little years of creating work, I was able to have my films in the film festival circuit, and it has won like awards and special mentions in media outlets. And I'm really excited to be in this space to share with you guys how I go about creating a treatment, and hopefully that will help you guys in your other projects, right? Um, just before we get into it, I'm gonna share my screen. Um, share screen. There we go. Okay. Just let me know if you guys are able to see.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we can see.
All right. So, right. So, when approaching a director's treatment, right, first you read the script. The writer submits a script, which are words that help you sort of visualize the story, the world of the story. But you then, as a director, you create a treatment that you'll submit to your fellow crew members, and that treatment is supposed to sort of be the visual representation of the script and sort of your vision, right? And this is where, as a director, you get to make decisions about cinematography, about your lighting, about the art direction. And to be able to get to that point of deciding, there needs to be a foundation with which those decisions come from, right? Which we'll get to that, and that is the vision of the director. So, one thing that I should mention is that the whole treatment should sort of be the film, but in paper form, or in visual form. So this the story the script is the story but through words. The director's treatment is the story but through images, and then the actual film is the motion picture, right? So when we are looking at your director's treatment, we need to sort of see the film, and hence all decisions in the pictures that you use in your treatment should align with the vision that you have, or rather how you would imagine the actual film to be. So one, you'd have your cover page, and then you need to mention that it's a director's treatment compiled by yourself. As I wrote here, it's by Matepora Kalakani, that's me. And then that would then be your cover page, right? And then the second page would then be your index page that shows the different elements that you're going to be getting into. So you need to have your synopsis page, the world of the story. You need to have a target market and distribution page. You'd need to have the director's statement of intent. That's your reason of doing the film, or why you find it important that the story should be told. And then you get into your director's vision, where it's more elaborated. And then you're going to go into now the different departments, your color palette, your art direction. You're going to have show your key characters. You're going to have the cinematography page, just going into detail of elements you want and why you want them. And then you're going to go into lighting, editing, and sound design, right? So I'm going to go through these different elements, and then we're going to pause for after a series of slides just to have a Q&A to see if we are all getting it, right?
Awesome. Thanks, Matsep.
Yes. So this is a director's treatment I'm currently working on. I'll be using it as a case study. The title of the film is called Chasing Sunsets, which, as you can see here, that's what it is. And just to give you guys an overview of what the story is about, so that you can then also understand the decisions that I made as we go along the document, I'm just going to read through the synopsis, and then other stuff I won't really get into, but this is just for you guys to know sort of the brief idea of the story. So Lina is going to meet her sunset after 3 months of consecutive sunlight in her waiting period at Casa Durante, a facility that houses spirits that are waiting to cross over to the eternal afterlife. To her horror, Lina misses this big change due to her family not completing their end of mourning period ritual, which is called Dikapolo in Sepedi. To make space for her room's next occupant, Lena is now scheduled to be transferred to the Center for Lost Souls to wait there. Anxious that her sunset will never come and that she'll roam the earth forgotten, Lena and her friend Joe break out of Casa Durante to go to her family home to make sure they complete the Dikapolo. Lena arrives home and learns that the mission she has signed up for might not be easy, as her sister, Ditiro, is the one holding her family back from completing the ritual. Lena must find a way to convince Ditiro to help her cross over. Basically, that's sort of the overview of the story. We follow Lena, who has passed on and is now a spirit being in Casa Durante, which is a facility that houses the spirits. And she has missed her crossover deadline because her family did not complete the Dikapolo, the end of mourning period ritual. And now in the story, we journey with her. She goes home to convince her family to complete the Dikapolo so that she can cross over to eternal afterlife to arrive at her sunset. Hence, the story title Chasing Sunsets, right? So you need to mention the synopsis in this page. You need to have the logline as well, which is sort of the shorter version of the whole story. And then you also have to mention your genre and your length. Our genre is magical realism, but also we have subgenres in the film, which are your drama, and it also has elements of comedy, right? This is important because sometimes when you pitch, or when you pitch to your crew members and just other people, some people don't like to read scripts because they're so long, right? You'd find a lighting person who likes the story but like will not go through your 30-page script. So these summarized versions of the story is what then they would read. So that's why it's important to have this. And also this information is what will be used to put on your casting brief when you're having auditions. They'll take information from the director's treatment because it's sort of the summarized version of the story, right? And then we move on to the world of the story. So we have a controlling idea, which is the main theme of the story, and it's what sort of drives the story. These are story facts. The previous page that I put on and this one, it's story facts that are from the actual script from the writer, right? And so we have the main theme, which is in order to move on, you need to let go. And these are things that you find in the script. As you're going through the script reading as a director, you need to always jot down stuff that come to mind, stuff that you're picking up from the characters or from how the story goes, just to sort of have an idea of what is the story really, what is it teaching, what are we, and from that information, then you'll come to a point where you know sort of the main theme that you want to go for. And in the story Chasing Sunsets, it's about in order to move on, we need to let go. And then in that, there's sub themes as well. And we're dealing with grief because it's a story about having lost someone, and we tackle how everybody deals with grief differently. And just also the idea of life and death, or rather the confusion of it, where we follow the story of Lena, who is a spirit being. She has passed on, and then we also have the perspective of her family that's still on earth and dealing with her death. So with the confusion of life and death, we have death is a mystery, but life doesn't always make much sense either. And those are the perspectives we get from the characters in the story, right? And then just to briefly speak on the world of the story, which are story facts from the script. So the story is set in Pretoria in 2023. We have spirits that are inhabiting the earth but can only be seen by a few people, right? These spirits are the people from Casa Durante who are coming to the world to sort of finish their unfinished business, you know. And then we have Casa Durante, which is that facility I spoke about that hosts spirits that are waiting to cross over. And then the thing about Casa Durante is that it has perpetual sunlight. So it's always sunlight for Casa Durante, for the spirit beings, until their waiting period is over. And to show that their period of waiting is over, that's when the sunset comes. It means they are now able to cross over. They have reached their sunset, right? And then in our story, we have five key characters, which is Lena. We have Lena, the main character, Ditiro, who is the sister to the main character. We have Joe, who Lena gets to meet at Casa Durante. Then we have Ghost Guy, and we have Simon, right? And my script writer shared this information of the characters in the story actually represent the 5 stages of grief, right? Which is an important element to add on here, which has helped me as a director to sort of bring out a vision, which I'll speak on in the next slide. So our key characters actually represent the 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, right? So this is sort of the summarized version of the script so that people get an idea of it without having to read the script, right? Are you guys understanding the story, or are you at this point getting an idea of what the story is about?
Yes.
All right. Are you still able to see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So we have now the target market. It's important to mention this and to know it as a director because it also influences your choices, right? And also it's always good to know who are you making this for. At the end of creating all of this, which platform are you going to take it to? Which platform is correct for the kind of story that you're making, right? So just to briefly go through this page, our primary target market is ages 19 to 35, which are young people. And on the first point, we wrote cerebral film lovers. These are people who like films that are sort of intelligent, and you'd have to watch 3 times in order to really get it. It's your Christopher Nolan kind of film lovers, you know what I mean? We have people who are enthusiasts of magical realism or surrealism, people who are modern young people, and it's relatable because the script has elements of multicultural elements in the script, and then it's also an intersectional coming of age story. So these people ages 19 to 35, and with the elements mentioned, these are sort of our primary target audience. Then you have your secondary, which is 35 to 55, and these are of nostalgia, family with who are familiar with family traditions. As in the story, we are talking about the ritual of Tikapolo, and that is sort of a traditional ritual that happens for the family Tsamapedi, you know. And then we also have the tertiary target audience, which are older people who are 55 and above. These are people who are familiar with family traditions. They also get an insight about young people and their experiences, because now we get to follow young people in the story. And then on your distribution platform, we plan to put our film on film festivals using the platform Film Freeway. So film festivals like Joburg Film Festival, Durban Film Festival, Toronto Film Festival, and these are platforms that work for us because they allow for work that's experimental, and it's sort of the target audience is always in these spaces, right? We also have independent film curators, which we want to put our films on once we have finished putting our film on film festivals. And then also in the future, our dream is to then put it on streaming platforms that buy distribution rights. So you'd have conversations with your Netflix, with your Showmax, and so that's sort of this page is just information that helps you as a director know the kind of elements that you'd put. Is it correct for the target audience? Does it work? Is it aligned with the distribution platforms that you want? For example, a film like this wouldn't be put on SABC. It could be, but the target audience is not there. The target audience is at film festivals, or if you think of a channel like A24, that's sort of the channels that work for this kind of story. So it's important to know your target audience. It's important to know your distribution platform, right? So that you don't end up making a film that then you have no idea where to take it. So it's important.
Sorry, I think my connection just dipped. Everybody's still on?
Yeah, I'd lost sound for a while, but it's back on now.
There's no sound. No, I still don't have sound on. Oh, okay, it's back on. Never mind.
Matsep, can you perhaps just check your microphone for this one?
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Sorry about that. Where did you lose me? Which page was I on?
On my side, it was just one page back.
Okay. So we on the director's statement. Are we all
Yeah.
here?
Perfect. Yes, yes.
Am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
All right. All right. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, this page is important to mention because as a director, we need to know why you're doing the script, why you have chosen this role, how you're going to sort of lead the team and have them sort of, how to, it's you connecting with them, right? So for me with the story, what I liked is that I like I liked the concept of life and death and the in between that it comes with, because it's one of the many concepts that fascinate me. And I'm a filmmaker, yes, but also I'm a visual artist. And a lot of my work, as you can see in the pictures below, it's work that reflects the mind space, reflects the intricacies of feelings, of time, of memories. These are sort of topics that I like and tackle in my work. And it's really just me trying to make sense of life. And if you think Salvador Dali's surrealism art movement, my work is sort of similar to that. And when I read the script rather, it reminded me of how everything is a mystery, and and the beautiful thing about mystery is the magic that lies within it, right? And these are it's I sort of I liken it to my artworks. So doing this film for me is really me trying to make sense of life. We have characters that are also not understanding stuff that happen in the film, and it's quite relatable for me to do. Hence, I believe I'm the right person to do it. And because we're dealing with magical realism, and it's sort of the kind of work that I like to do, it's easier to sort of connect with the story and sort of have a vision for it, right? Um, and now we move to the vision of the film. Am I still audible? Just checking in.
Yes,
Yes.
you are.
All right. So this is now the vision of the film, right? Some people call it model construct. Some people call it a through line. Some people call it the metaphor of the film. Some people call it the anchor of the film. Some people call it the foundation of the film. Really, it has a lot of terms, but it's really the foundation in which all of the decisions from cinematography to lighting are going to be made from this vision, right? Just see it as a metaphoric way of looking at the story. And um, mine, what came to me when sort of figuring out what the foundation of this film would be is the idea of a butterfly effect, right? The butterfly in its form, but also the butterfly effect. I don't know if you guys have heard of this notion that a butterfly once flapped its wings on one part of the planet and then it caused a tsunami on another part of the planet. That's sort of the notion that always goes with the idea of a butterfly effect. And that's, I liked that, and I think it works for the story, which I'll explain why. So I chose the butterfly effect because it rests on that notion that the world is deeply connected. A small shift in your thinking can lead to massive alterations of the end result. And the thing about it is that one cannot predict where or how or why things happen, but it's that the power of all of that mystery, it's in the magic. For me, it's the thing of when we don't, a lot of times as human beings, we don't know why things happen, we don't understand stuff. And for me, it gives me the knowing that there has to be a higher power that's orchestrating everything. And me, with my human mind, I'm not able to I will not understand everything, right? And that's sort of the idea that I see in the film, in the story, and what I want to incorporate throughout the decisions that I make with the film, and hence the butterfly effect and just the butterfly in its form, which we'll get into. So um, how this butterfly effect works with the story is that just to give an example, I wrote here, Ditiro's reluctance to perform the Dikapolo hinders Lena's crossover to the eternal afterlife, thus inciting her journey of chasing her sunset. This also prompts Jo, who's delaying her own sunset because of self-guilt, on a journey that'll rekindle her to Ghost Guy, with which her guilt lies. All the choices that are made ripple into coincidental events that eventually lead to each individual reaching the stage of acceptance, letting go, and moving on. Basically, this describes events that happen in the story of how one choice is made and it leads to another and it leads to another and it leads to another, but eventually it leads to all of them coming to a point of acceptance, because we have these different characters that are dealing with grief, and obviously also represent the different stages of grief. And eventually, one decision that was made has led to all of them going about different journeys, but all leading to a point of acceptance. And that's sort of how the butterfly effect um, connects with the story. Whichever um, whichever part of the story I start at, it always leads to something else and something else, and eventually leading to a point of acceptance, right? Um, I'm just going to explain the next page, and then we'll do just questions on the model construct to see if we're all sort of getting the idea of it, right? And the model construct just put into a through line, what I just explained as a model construct put into a through line, it reads, the journey to freedom is intricate. Each step forward ripples into unpredictable outcomes. But what is not mysterious is that in the end, you will be freed, right? Um, this is also me just trying to simplify what I'm trying to say with the model, with the metaphoric way of looking at the film, and how then I also incorporate the butterfly in its form is, you see how our characters represent different stages. Just like a butterfly, when it's going through metamorphosis, it starts off as an egg, going through different stages of transformation, and eventually coming to a point of being a fully formed butterfly that's able to fly out in the world, right? So we have Lena, who represents denial, and for her, it's like death. She has passed on, but for her, death hasn't really clicked in, that she's actually dead. She's in her final stages. She's not understanding what that means to her, for her family, and hence she represents denial. Then we have Lena Ditiro, who represents anger, and her anger comes from, well, she purposefully doesn't do the decapolo because not only does she not get it, but also it means letting go of her sister and everything of her sisters. And um, that is something that's very frustrating for her as a young girl who has always had a strong sisterly bond with her sister, right? Then we have Jo, who represents bargaining. She has come to her sunset, but she hasn't crossed over because she still has unfinished business to do. So before you cross over, you need to be at a point of peace, of acceptance. I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing of some spirits that linger on earth. It's because they have unfinished business. So they're not really resting in peace until their business is done. So she represents that. And then we have Ghost Guy, who represents depression, and he is the answer to what happens to lost souls. Um, and then we have Simon, who is a caseworker who works at Casa Durante as a caseworker, and he represents acceptance. So he represents the stage in which all of these people want to get to in order to be free, in order to move on, in order to cross over to their sunset, in order to start healing, you know. So hence the idea of a butterfly effect, because all of these people are connected. Hence the idea of the different stages of metamorphosis, as the butterfly is sort of something that also goes through that. Let me just go back a bit. Yes, so I'd like to just hear from you guys if you guys are getting the idea of a model construct. Anybody? If you have any questions on that or how that comes about, can shoot.
Listen, don't be shy. It's like Henk, it's just the first time. So do you have any questions for Matsepo with regards to, you know, anything she's talked about up to this point, or any questions in general with regards to directing or director's treatment? No?
No?
Carmen, don't you have a question from your side? Who's directing? Micheline, you're directing. That you don't have any questions at this stage, right?
I have a question.
Okay, cool. Namond?
Yes.
The model construct. Sorry, I joined in late because of
Mhm.
load shedding and everything. Can you
Mm.
please just recap on that?
Okay, so the model construct is sort of a metaphoric way of looking at the film, right? It's what is going to be the foundation of the ideas. So see, as mentioned here, let me just go back a bit. So it's a metaphoric way of looking at the film. So I used the idea of a butterfly effect, right? Or a butterfly in its form. So an example, which we'll also get into later, when we see Ditiro, when we see Lena, who's a spirit being, the reason she's not able to cross over is because her sister is not performing the ritual, right? So that means she's sort of trapped there at Casa Durante, or she's trapped as a spirit being. So if you see, there's a stage of on metamorphosis where the caterpillar is stuck inside. Forgot what the stage is called, but it's sort of a shell, right? So I see Lena as someone who is trapped because her sister is not performing the decapolo. So that would mean a decision in that for cinematography, for example, would be, because she's trapped, all of her shots would be tight, like close-ups, extreme close-ups, because she has no space to breathe. She's trapped inside Casa Durante. Or if it's wide shots, I'd then block her or make a composition in which she's sort of within a frame. So I'd place her on a door frame so that she's like, our frame is a frame within a frame, to just speak, to give a visual cue of the idea that she's trapped. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes.
So, Matsep, just a quick question there. Am I understanding the model construct correctly when I say that you take the story and you tie the theme into that, and you use something metaphorical to guide you throughout your visualization for the film?
Yes, definitely, exactly
Okay.
that.
Okay, perfect. Kamu, I see there's a hand up. Kamu?
Yes, the question would have been, I think it ties into what you said. Do we only use for the model construct metaphors? Is it the only way to go about it, or is there another way?
So some people don't do model construct, right? It's just taking the script and just deciding stuff, Kuti. Oh, I just want this color. I want this color. I want this color. Which is a way that is also done and accepted. But for me, I use a model construct because this is sort of now how you come in as a director, especially if you want to be what they refer to as an auteur, or we know that, oh, that's a Matebo kind of film, or that's a Christopher Nolan kind of film, or that's a Yossi kind of film. It's we're able to know, we're able to see like sort of your style and the decisions you make, and that comes from having a model construct, right? So a writer brings in a script, and that's the writer's concept script writing, and then it's like, how do you then as a director make it your own? it can be you just take the script and execute it with just deciding stuff, not randomly, but according to the script. But having a model construct, sort of, it's you creating a little concept that is a you thing that then gets to help with the decisions. So if you don't have a model construct, that is still okay, but then you're not able to identify yourself as, you're not able to really identify your style of work, or does that make sense to you? So it can be a film without you can do a film without a model construct, and you can do one with one. Does that
Okay,
answer the question?
yeah, it answers my question. But just on that, because I saw with the model construct, you were talking more of the characters. So a model construct is not just about the characters; it's about the overall story, how your own
Yes.
represent of it.
Yes.
Okay, no, thank you.
And then we'll get to the other elements and how it relates to the model construct. I just wanted to get, if you guys are getting sort of why it's there, why I advise that you maybe consider doing it. But yes, any more questions, or can we move on?
Cool. I think, yeah, let's move. Let's move on. Yeah. Was there a question, or was that you, Matsep?
Pardon?
No, I think it was you. Sorry. Okay, you can go. Sorry.
Okay. Also a mention of images. So as a director, well, right now I'm also, as I visualize the script, I'm also the casting director. So the people that I've put on here are sort of people that I'd want to see as these characters, right? So it's important to also include images, because remember, your director's treatment is sort of the film, but as a document. And so it's important to sort of visualize every single detail of it, so that it helps also the crew to see what you see, right? And then on here, you have references. Just gonna switch that off. So it's important that you include references, right? So these references are references for I put A Wrinkle in Time because it has magical elements in the real world. This is to just give an idea of what I mean when I speak about magical elements in the real world. So it has people in the real world, but where you find plants moving in a way that they wouldn't move in reality. Right, I'll just play it for you guys to see. And then we also have The Fallout, which is another reference because it's a film that deals with grief. And this is sort of the direction I want to take in sort of the tone of our film. It's going to be a magical realism film, but really one that deals with this kind of tone of dealing with grief, of a lot of sadness, of a lot of hurt. So when you put the two together, it's sort of a beautiful sadness, and that is what the direction in which I want the film to go, right? I'm not gonna play the videos because they might take time, but this is to just give you an understanding of, it's important to put references. These are story references, and then in the different departments like cinematography, you'd also have to put a reference of maybe the kind of cinematography you want that's maybe similar to another film, and an end which we'll get to, right? Okay, and then now we have a color palette. It's important to have a color palette, and this is not a decision that you make on your own. You can, yes, I see a hand.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Quick question on the issue of pictures. Do you use them before, or do you conduct is it what do you call auditions and then use the ones that you've got via the auditions, or do you just take any pictures that you visualize it as a director to say that this is the person that I'll be looking for, as much as it's not the same person, but more or less that kind of a person?
Okay, so you use the pictures before. It's not the pictures of the actual actors. It's pictures that you as a director visualize the characters to be, which in the end it could be the actual characters that you get, right? So this is a document you make in pre-production before you even get to the audition process. So to answer your question, these are pictures, it's pictures that you visualize, not that it's going to be the actual actors, but just people that you see that fit the role, or the kind of people that you see that fit the role. Because remember, this information is also what will be used to now create your casting brief, right? Does that answer your question? Do you get it?
Cool, there's a thumbs up.
All right, thank you. So now we have a color palette. As mentioned, this is not a decision you make on your own. You obviously go consult with your editor, your lighting person, your director of photography, just to sort of help you decide on the look and feel, right? So with this film, we're going for the analogous color scheme, and this is colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And this is important because it speaks back to that connective nature of the butterfly effect. Remember what we spoke about, the butterfly effect having this connective nature, and analogous color scheme is using colors that are next to each other. So that's this is now the different departments speaking back to the vision of the director, right? And then I also mentioned orange is my dominating color in the film, and this is inspired by the story of Chasing Sunsets, the color of the sunset, but it's also because of its association with warmth, with its exotic essence and the youthful nature. The exotic essence, speaking back to the idea of we're dealing with magical realism, with spirits, which is quite an exotic thing. But also we have a lot of young people in this, following young people rather. And orange is sort of the color that speaks to that, right? So this is the color palette, and we have in the film, I divided the story into 3 sections, right? Just to remember, we are trying to visualize the film and for the crew to be able to also see what I'm seeing in my head. So we have Casa Durante, which is the picture under Casa Durante. This is how I visualize it to be, where orange is my dominating color. So according to the color theory, when putting color out, it's you should have in each scene, or in just the film as a whole, you have a dominating color, and then you have a secondary color, and then you have a color that's sort of 10% that's making the other colors pop more. So in Casa Durante, we have 60% orange, we have 30% yellow, and 10% green, in which all of these colors, it's not that everything will be orange 60%, but just orange and it's in its different shades. It could be your light orange ranging to yellow or going to your browns. Just if you look at the picture, this is sort of an ideal way of how I'd want Casa Durante to be, right? And then the middle one is the journey to Pretoria, where the characters Lena and Joe escape Casa Durante going to the home. So they journey around different landscapes going to the home in Pretoria. And this would be, according to color theory, 60% would be your greens, because they're now like going on these landscapes, passing through these landscapes. And then your 30% would be your yellow and 10% blue. So your blue would be sort of your sky. And then your 30% being how when the sun passes through, when the sun like is through what you call the trees, it creates this orange feel, but also what the characters will be wearing, there'll be elements of orange in there. And the green, really, it's really just the nature of the nature, right? And then we have the third section of the story, which is the Tsotetse home. That's Lena's household. And in my color theory, it then has 60% blue, right? 30% purple and 10% orange. And when you look at Casa Durante and Tsotetse home, it's sort of yellow and blue are complementary colors, right? So it's like Casa Durante is the warm place, and then the Tsotetse home is sort of the cold place, because also they're dealing with grief. They are still in pain, in mourning, and having this color sort of allows us to visualize that, to elicit these emotions in the audience when they're watching, and the space is filled up with your blues, with your darker tones, and all of that. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you get?
I get it. Do you guys get it?
Yes.
Cool. Namons, I see you've got your hand up. Is there a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, do you divide the color palettes according to every scene, or just divide it into 3 parts of the movie?
So, so you'd have an overall color palette for your film, right? Which is what I have here at the top. It doesn't have to be all of these many colors. You can just decide. But because of the story that we're doing, and for me to understand better the color, I have divided it into 3 sections, because the story happens at Casa Durante, then we also have the outside where they are journeying to Pretoria, and then we also have the home. So I divided it for me and my team to understand better, and for me to really have them see or understand it better. So you don't have to, some of these choices, it's for you, for yourself and your team. So you don't have to divide it into 3 sections, but it can just be one color palette that's the same throughout the film. Or you can divide it according to sections, or you can divide it according to scenes, but you need to have an overall color palette for the film. Does that answer your question?
There's a thumbs up. Okay, Kamu, I see there's one more hand up. Kamu.
All right. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to ask,
Mm-hmm.
like with someone like Roger Deakins, when it comes to the color palette, right? It seems as if, but he's just a cinematographer. He's not the director. Although he works with the director, it seems like he influences more of how the color palette of the story are set up. So does that sometimes happen whereby the cinematographer would know best how to actually do the color palette?
Yes, definitely. So you are correct. So as mentioned, I said this is not something that you do alone. You collaborate with your DP, with your gaffer, with your editor. So remember, this is the director's treatment with which I'm still to present to my team, and then they're also gonna get to create their own treatments according to what's here. So now in our consultations, maybe my DP will come in and say, I see what you're trying to do, but maybe this doesn't really work. Let's look at it this way. So this is just me and my head, but it could change, and I need to be open to the change. So yes, it could change, and sometimes the DP knows better. Well, most of the time the DP knows better, and the gaffer knows better on how understanding your story and what you're trying to do. They'll help you execute or create a better palette for the film. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. All right. So then moving on to art direction. This is where really art direction is, how do I say? It's sort of all the elements that you see in frame, your set design, the wardrobe, every little element detail that you see in frame, that's art direction, right? So on it, first you obviously mentioned the locations that you want, or how you envision this place, Casa Durante. So I put on pictures of the Voortrekker Monument, because that's how I envision Casa Durante to look like. A place that looks very not normal. Your sort of Area 51 kind of place in the middle of nowhere. So this, and then I also mentioned specific locations with which we're gonna shoot, specific locations that are in the story. So we have to shoot in a foyer, right, which is just an open space, in which we're gonna fill it up with the different spirit beings, We also have the hallway, in which there's a scene that happens in the hallway. And then we also have an exterior wall, just a wall surrounding Casa Durante, in which there's a scene that happens there where the two characters, Joe and Lena, are going to be escaping, jumping over the wall. So, so that the art director knows exactly now when they're working with the location. This is also when we're going to do location scouting. These are the specific areas of the location that we need to put more attention on, right? And also at the bottom, important elements to mention that need to be in these locations. So I mentioned I need an open, a spacious foyer as referenced, which will be filled with spirit beings doing different activities, and a huge tree. So ideally, I'd like it to have like a huge tree. If not a huge tree, just with conversations with my art director, then we'll see what alternatives we can have to sort of get this look if a huge tree is impossible to get, you know. And then I also mentioned at the bottom that we need to have a Casa Durante logo that's visible in Casa Durante, which will be placed somewhere, but I haven't figured out where, but through conversations with my art director, we'll figure that out. It's also important to sometimes don't be very specific. You need to leave room for your different departments to also let them work their creativity. Just give them ideas like parameters in which they're able to also then add in their spark and their creativity, because they are the experts in the stuff, and then you are sort of the one you are deciding the parameters, and then they get to fill it up with stuff, right? We also need a huge calendar in the foyer. We also need a huge clock in the foyer. Those are the three important things that need to be in this space, right? And then also within Casa Durante, remember we're dealing with magical realism and the idea of surrealism that I also mentioned. These are some of the elements I'd like to see within Casa Durante to speak back to the idea of this is a magical place, this is a surreal place where you see things that you wouldn't really see in the real world. So I wrote here, it is essential that we include subtle elements of surrealism around Casa Durante to establish it as such. These images are just ideas to tickle your imagination, right? So also knowing your crew members, sometimes the stuff that you put on there or little comments you make, it's sort of specific to them, or you can even add little jokes for your people just to really make the document exciting. Because that's the whole purpose of it, to excite your crew members so that they can also go out and really go wild, right? So these are little elements that I'd like to see, not that it's going to be specifically this, but just surreal things around Casa Durante that I'd like to see. And through conversations, then we'll get to a point where we decide exactly what's going to be there, why is it there, what not, right? Also in Casa Durante, two other locations that we're going to be shooting at are the bedroom in which we see Lena waking up from, and also Simon's office, Simon the caseworker. So this is sort of an idea of how I'd want the bedroom to look like, because remember we're going with the surreal magical feel, and in the bedroom it's important to have a calendar, because remember this is where she gets the calendar is important because we're dealing with someone who has missed her deadline, so it's important to have these little visual cues that speak back to that. And also the calendar is in the script, so it has to be on here. Then also just a mason jar with a butterfly in it, just to have little or subtle elements of the model construct within the film. Then in Simon's office, this is how I'd ideally like it to look. So it's just, yeah, me giving ideas to the art director of sort of how far he should take it with art direction. All right. And then we have the journey to Pretoria. With the journey to Pretoria, it's really the two characters, Lena and Joe, going through different landscapes on their journey to Lena's home. So it's like a forest, a road in the middle of nowhere, also a flower field. I haven't gotten a picture of a flower field, but I imagine a flower field. And this is just to give an idea of spaces that we're going to be shooting at. And also this helps with now when we're going to go to location scouting, we know like spaces that we're going to be looking for, right? And then we also have then the last category of it all is a Tsotetsi home. In the Tsotetsi home, we have Lena's bedroom, and then I also mentioned a sitting area, hallway, spacious backyard with a garden, right? I haven't gotten pictures of that, but also at the bottom I mentioned important things to include within the home, within Lena's bedroom are the bedroom to have a window that doesn't have burglar bars, because now Lena will be coming in through the window because she doesn't want to be seen. Well, at that point, she doesn't know if she can be seen or not, so she uses the window to enter. So it's important when you go location scouting to get a house that has a window that doesn't have burglar bars, right? And I also mentioned that she's a recent animation graduate, so this helps the art director to know little details to put in her bedroom that speak back to she's a recent graduate in animation. Also, she has a strong sisterly bond with her sister Didiro. So in her bedroom, like this gives them ideas to the art director to include images of them in a frame somewhere around the room to just speak back to that idea of they were actually really close. And she's currently, well, before she passed away, she is a concept artist at Chocolate Tribe, where I mentioned specific companies and stuff just to sometimes to with these ideas, it's us also a way of thinking ahead of maybe these could be sponsors for the film, right? Where instead of us using a budget to get stuff, we could go to the company Chocolate Tribe and they could give us certain elements for art direction, like certain props from their company that we can use, or so some of the decisions that you make as a director, it's you sort of thinking ahead and dreaming to sort of collaborate with certain companies and whatnot. So these are what I have put for Lena's bedroom, because also Lena's bedroom is what the room that we're going to be using a lot to shoot in at the Tsotetsi home, right?
Awesome.
Yes, we good with that, and then we almost done, guys. So now we go to the characters, and also within the characters, I also mentioned wardrobe, right? So I have divided this into two. So we have Casa Durante, we have Tsotetsi home. So at Casa Durante it's a facility that houses spirit beings, right? The Tsotetsi home, it's with actual human beings who are still alive. And what's happening at that house is that it's a ritual Dikapulo that is happening, right? Dikapulo, it's a ritual that happens Komapeding, where it's a ritual of letting go, where you are, how do I explain it? It's basically a ritual of letting go where you are taking off the black clothing that you wear during the mourning period, and now you get to wear your normal colored clothes and sort of start your journey of healing. That's if I explain it in similar terms. So at Casa Durante, how I imagine the people to dress like is the spirit beings wear these colors, your warmer side of the color wheel, your oranges, your yellows, and in their different tones. And this is how I imagine them to wear. And then the case workers, your Simon and other case workers, they wear all white, right? And we have extras in the film. Besides the five key characters, we have other supporting cast and extras. So in Casa Durante, it's important to also mention the key actors characters in Casa Durante. We have your Lena, your Joe, your Jasper, and then the spirit beings and Simon the case worker. Also, this is you making things simpler for people who have not read the script or who don't know much about it, to know that, oh, in Casa Durante, we have these people who are also going to speak, but they're not going to be in the film that much, but they're important in Casa Durante. Then in the Tsotetse home, we have Matsotetse, the mom, we have the father, you have the pastor and the auntie, right? And I also mentioned little things like, not little, but rather the dominion that they fall under. The mom is a Christian. Then the dad goes to churches at ZCC. And then you have a pastor that's also Christian. Just to also give an idea to the art director of how these people dress, or the little elements they have, like the little elements they have on their clothing, what they'll be wearing, elements to put in the Tsotetse home to speak back to the kind of family that they are. And you know what I mean? So this is stuff that you include. And then this, we're not going to go through this, but you also put information about your characters. So we have Lena, who's 24, and she's the protagonist and is a spirit being. This is a backstory that you're going to be using this to put on your casting brief, so that when people audition, they know sort of a backstory to their characters, which will help them when they're auditioning and sort of internalizing and embodying the character, right? So more information now about Lena and what I want her to wear, the kind of hair I'd want her to wear, and why that. So, and also mentioning her goal and obstacle, just to make it easier for people who don't want to go through the hassle of reading a script, but it's so important to read the script. You need to. So you have Lena. I mentioned she wears desaturated clothes and desaturated to saturated. So because her sunset hasn't come, her clothing represents the journey from sunlight to sunset. So at the end of it all, when now she reaches her sunset and her family has performed the Dikapolo, she's gonna be leaving her home wearing a jacket that she got from home, like a saturated orange jacket, just to sort of give off that idea of now she has arrived, has come to her sunset and has come to a point of acceptance. Just, you see, it's like just little ideas of speaking back to the themes and all of that through clothing, through wardrobe, through props, through stuff like that. We also have now the sister, information about her, which you also need to include. She's the antagonist, the human being. We also then have also information about her and what she'll be wearing and the hair I'd want her to have, her goals and her obstacles. And then you have Jo, and also information about her and the clothes that I'd want her to wear. So it's important to also mention, especially for your key characters, right? This is Ghost Guy. I haven't put on clothes that I want him to wear yet, but you have to put information about him. And then you have your Simon. And then now to get to cinematography. Just quick one, did you guys understand characters and the wardrobe and the art direction? Do you get information on that? Does it make sense to you?
Mohau gave a thumbs up.
All right, thank you very much. Just a few more slides to go. So now we're going now on the technical side of things, and also speaking back on how that then my decisions are gonna speak back to the model construct. So cinematography with camera work, through conversations with my DP, we spoke about wanting to use an anamorphic lens, right? And I put reasons for that. I wrote here, a wise man once said, you know that awesome cinematic look? That's the work of an anamorphic lens, right? I wrote here that it will really help execute the beautiful, soft, dreamy cinematic style that we're going for. Plus also because we're journeying through Lena's perspective, who is a spirit being, using this type of lens only makes sense to use this type of lens because we are sort of in a dreamy, surreal, magical place, right? And following a spirit being. And then I also mentioned here sort of what what the anamorphic lens can do, to just also give information to those that don't know, right? And then also just at the bottom here, I mentioned, now this is speaking back to shot selections, shot choices. I mentioned shot choices will be for dramatic and aesthetic value. Each frame should communicate either themes or an idea of the model construct. Imagine the camera to be an emotional state specific to each character, right? So sometimes there's directors that do their own shot lists. There's directors, and then they consult with the DP. But I like to just give an idea of what I want, or sort of parameters of it should speak back to this or this and this, and then the DP goes on to sort of put together a short list, and then we come adjusted together. So we have, this is just to give an idea to the DP. We have Lena, who I mentioned, she's sort of stuck and trapped in limbo because her sister has not performed the Dikapolo. So I imagine her to be sort of stuck and trapped in a thing. I put a mason jar with a butterfly inside just to give a visual cue of how to see it. And this then would hopefully have the DP see, oh, maybe she could be, we could have tight shots for her, close-ups, your extreme close-ups, because she's trapped and there's no room for her to breathe. Or in moments where it's wide shots, she could be put within a frame, like within a door frame or window frame, to just give off that visual cue that she is a frame within a frame, sort of trapped in a box somewhere. And this speaks back to how she's trapped in limbo, right? Then for the tiro, it's like she's a person who's not ready to open up or to let go. Therefore, she's the one holding her sister hostage. I haven't figured out the kind of shots that I want for her, but this is to just give an idea to the cinematographer, which he'll then work it out, or through conversations we can help each other put together shots for her, how we wanna execute her, right? And then we have Joe, who is sort of free to go, but she's delaying her sunset. So I put a picture of like a butterfly that's, the mason jar is not closed, it's open, but the butterfly is not flying out, it's sort of lingering on the edge. So it could be a situation where her shots, she has like where she's in the mid, in the shots, she's in the middle, she has space to move, room to breathe, but she's always like sort of never moving around. Or we have Ghost Guy, who's a lost soul, isolated, depressed, and his shots could be your extreme wides, where he's seen as like a very small character to show how he's isolated. Or it could be your what do you call, I forgot, where he's seen as inferior, right? You could also have Simon, who is at a stage of acceptance. He's at a peaceful state of mind, representing freedom. So with him, it could be shots that speak where he's put sort of in the middle of the frame to show that he is sort of, he's symmetrical, right? So these are just me putting ideas for the cinematographer to go work out shots, and after that we can then come together to consult and see which one works. Does this work best for this character, or does this work best for this character? And also, just a side note, I put here that close-ups are essential because we are building the plot from the emotional states of the characters, even extreme close-ups, right? And then on here, I put an example of just how extreme they could be, sort of putting a visual design from sort of a specific scene, just to give off an idea, not that it's going to be actually this, but I put a scene of Titiro where she's in her bedroom not long after her sister's passing, where she's dealing with grief, she's isolating in her room, and also looking on the internet for answers for certain things that she's going through. So this would be sort of a visual design, or how I envision it, right? And yes, so this is sort of what it is, right? Does that make sense to you guys? Do you get the idea of how now cinematography is speaking back to the model construct? Not that every single choice or detail should speak back to the idea of a butterfly, but just little elements. Some could just be for aesthetic value, some could be for dramatic value, some speaking back to the themes, to the model construct, but just to the model construct then helps in tying everything together, making the story one. Does that make sense? Do you guys get?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And then moving along, we have the camera movement, right? I wrote here, the camera movement is inspired by the flying of a butterfly. I'd like for the camera to imitate that movement when we are in Casa Durante and just throughout the film as we journey with Lena, the spirit being. So through conversations with my DP, he mentioned the idea of when we're from Casa Durante, we're gonna have this floating or gliding kind of movement because now we're in the spirit world, and as we go along, even when she's going to her home, it's the camera gliding, sort of imitating the movement of a butterfly, right? So that would be movement that's camera is not on a tripod. Camera is sort of like a steady cam and sort of executing that kind of movement. And then when we're in the hospital, in the beginning, the film actually starts in a hospital where it's the shots could be static and stable because now we're in a world that we know of, but also just to separate the two worlds where one is stable and the other is not. And then when we're closing off the film at the end where the character then enters into her sunset, the camera could be stable, but there could still be movement. So sort of think a dolly move, but it's not gliding, it's not floating, it's stable but sort of gliding, to just speak back to the character has come to a place of peace. The character has come to a place of acceptance, right? And then you have also your lighting, where just showing the two separate worlds, where Casa Durante is occupying the warm side of the color wheel and the Tsoteti home is on sort of the cold side of the color wheel. And basically Casa Durante is high key lit, and then your Tsoteti home would be low key lit. Just to this is just the brief idea of it, and then the lighting person will then go do their own treatment where they go into detail of this is what I'm going to use and this is what it's gonna sort of make people feel, or what I intend for it to make people feel. They go into more detail in their own treatments. And then also, this is just an overview of how the film would look in terms of lighting. So you have your hospital, that's your blues, and then you have your Casa Durante occupying the warmer side of the color wheel. Then your journey to Pretoria. Remember, I spoke about the greens being the dominant ones, even though there are bits and pieces of your oranges. Then Lena's home is similar to will be similar to the hospital, because it in the hospital and Lena's home, they in both spaces, it's like spaces where they're both dealing with like people who are sick or people who have passed away, and they're sort of dealing, and so both the spaces would have sort of the same color. And then you'd have where she's entering her sunset, we're going back to now the orange, and she's entering her sunset. So that's an overview of how the color would look. And then it's also important to now have sound design, include sound design, where you just really tickling the imagination of the sound designer. So I mentioned Casa Durante is a facility housing spirits waiting to cross over. I keep emphasizing that it's magical and it's surreal. So with my choices, or how I'd want the how I'd want Casa Durante to sound, I mentioned here that with the film's model construct in mind, let's establish an overarching sound motif, like the flapping of wings, which will be used as an element to portray the concept of the butterfly effect, to be utilized throughout the film. Maybe we'll utilize it as transition sounds, or rather, I haven't figured out exactly where they'll be placed, but as time goes, we'll know. So the idea of hearing like butterfly wings, maybe when someone enters the sunset, we hear the sound of wings flapping, or just throughout the film, we hear wings flapping, just to speak back to that idea of the model construct, right? Also, I mentioned that because it's a surreal and magical place, we need the sound to speak back to that concept. Maybe invert the sound of things, like imagine the sound of birds but inverted, or the sound of, I don't know, just what people would expect to hear, but we give them the total opposite. That's sort of the soundscape and audio elements that I'm looking for with the sound design, right? Then with music, spoke about the layering of humming voices that are sort of echoing but it's calming, it's gentle, but has an echo, but it's also beautifully haunting. And I mentioned a violin and a cello to be sort of the main instruments in the creation of the score, because I do want a score created for the film. And then I gave references of like how I'd want it to sound, but also the sound designer will then go into more detail of okay, I hear you, this is what you want, maybe I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that, you know. And that's sort of the conversation that keeps on going, right? And then also at the Tsotetse home, so at the Tsotetse home, they're dealing with grief, right? And for there, I don't want any music in the Tsotetse home. So I said with the well, I also mentioned the idea of the flapping of wings, which could be utilized, but we'll be using a lot of ambient sound in the place, because it's like I asked myself, what is the sound of grief? What is the sound of, yeah, how does grief sound like? To me, it sounds like silence. There's emptiness. So there won't be music playing over those shots that are happening at the Tsotetse home, but sort of just ambient sounds, which we can use sound effects, action sounds to intensify the emotions of the two sisters in the bedroom. And maybe a song would be put in towards the end of it, where she's now reaching her sunset, or when the Dikapulo is happening, which is sort of there's sort of a montage scene going on where we can put on a song, which I've referenced two songs here that sort of like speak back to the kind of song that I'd want to hear towards the end. So this is sort of you giving ideas to the sound designer of the feel that you're going for with the music, the separation of the two worlds. How are you separating the two worlds through music? How is music playing a role in creating these two worlds? You know. And then on your editing style, I haven't really put much information on here, but then you'd mention what kind of editing style do you want? Why this one? Da, 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 right? And also in our film, there's a lot of VFX that would be happening. So this is proof of concept from our editor, where I just had him try put together, like sort of change the sky, how the sky would look, which is an idea I have for Casa Durante. So what if we change the sky of Casa Durante so that it looks very different from the real world? And then we also have vanishing. This is a screenshot from a music video where when they enter the sunset, they sort of disappear. So we need to sort of have a way of having them disappear, right? And yeah, that's basically the elements that you add, um, um, just to sort of get your team excited to go be creative in their own departments. And yeah, that is it from me. Any questions? Oh,
There's a lot of hands clapping. Yes. Who's is it now?
I
There's a,
see them. Thank you. Does
any
it make
questions?
sense though? Yes.
Yes,
Any
I have a
comments?
question.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to ask what is the role of the screenwriter? Say, for example, you just showed us as a director your director's treatment. If you're not the screenwriter or the scriptwriter, what is their role? Because I'm guessing they also had a vision on how they wanted it to turn out. So how do you combine those two things if it's two different people who came up with this thing.
Yes. So before creating any of this document, so I read the script and then I get to then have a conversation with the writer of, okay, what inspired the story? How did you see it? So that I sort of get to a point of connection with her, so that when I now also choose my directing choices, I don't sort of go astray from what she initially wanted. So throughout the document, there's characters and character briefs, which are facts from the writer. On this document, I put like facts from the writer. Also has a treatment for story. So she'd have a character and her background, which she created, but she didn't sort of say, I wanted to wear this, I wanted to have this hair color, but should have sort of the personality, the behavior of the character, and the backstory. Then what I do is then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna decide because she's 24. Let's make her a recent graduate of what of animation. That's what then I decide as a director, but also through conversations with her. So it's like, even with her, she has decided stuff, but left room for me to decide certain elements, which I also then leave room for the rest of the crew to decide certain elements. Does that make sense? So she made the characters, then I dressed them, and then the rest of the crew also adds certain elements to those characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
So it's important to have conversations with your writer so that you don't just go do your own thing, because they also put in so much work to create this world.
Cool. Any other questions from anyone else? Listen, you have the opportunity now, so ask away.
I think also it was just like a whole lot of information that I believe they're still
True.
digesting.
Yeah, true.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, and also Matsep, I told them that once this Chasing Sunset film is done, we'll have another session, maybe contact with them and, doing a workshop or two, how to approach directing and how that whole phase and everything. So, yeah.
Okay.
But, okay, so I just quickly want to finish up. So, any questions before we say goodbye to Matsepo? Okay, Mohau, you've got a question, and Kamu as well. All right, Mohau.
Quick question. I mean, since we are creatives, can we sort of freestyle and not really work on the very same line that you've showed us? Is freestyling, would it be the best thing to go about, or do we just keep it all the way you have just showed us?
You can definitely freestyle, but I'm not sure I understand the context of your question. So it doesn't have to go in the order that mine went in. Doesn't have to be the way it was, but it's just to give an idea of, that's how I go about it. Where in the beginning I start with the elements of the story, facts from the writer. Then I go on to my model construct, which is my vision. Then everything below that are the different departments with how I see them. So I'm not sure if when you say freestyle, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, no, I think you've answered me. Actually, I was asking, is it one way thing, or can we? Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely freestyle it, make it personal to your crew members. For example, before this other treatments where I'd put on like just little comments to, if my DP is Yossi, and knowing him and the kind of relationship we have and understanding our styles together, like little comments that only he would understand, to just make the document exciting, man, so you can definitely freestyle it. Yes, I see another hand.
It's Kamu.
Yes, just a question, because considering the different departments, I get that you give them a specific guideline on to so that you let their creativeness like shine through. But how do you now create that line whereby, although their creativeness is being promoted, but you still want a specific way? Let's say this maybe sometimes the DOP's lighting, no, the gaffer's lighting does not goes against what you are trying to portray through the movie. How do you now draw that line between letting them do what they do, but you at the same time staying true to what you are trying to produce at the end of the day? Because
Yeah.
that could be more dynamic that happens.
Yeah, totally get you. So, see the document with all the director's treatment with all the images I've put on, the colors, the whatnot. Those are the parameters that I'm creating. That's the border. That's you play around the space. That's what I'm doing with the document. And for example, like the color palette Casa Durante, it's occupying the warm side of things, right? So if my gaffer wants to put a blue light, that is totally out. It's like, why are you doing that? Give me a reason, motivate, and then we'll take it from there. So what the document sort of gives is it's me giving the parameters of play around this playground. And should you want to step outside or not agree with certain elements, then we have a conversation. We see why it doesn't work, why it works. Maybe could we adjust it or not? So it goes back to always having conversations with your team members and coming to a point of understanding each other and doing what's best for the story. Does that answer your question? I mean,
Definitely. Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, Matsep, I think let's digest everything. Okay, there's one more. Okay, Noms, quick question.
I have a question, but not related to the director's treatment.
Yes.
Ever since you started the industry, right? How has it been easy or difficult for you to get to where you are? Also, is it possible for us to contact you and try and work with you as students right now for practicals or whatnot to gain experience?
Definitely yes. You can always text me. So I am still how do I put this? I am still a student, right? I graduated, but I'm also now continuing with my postgrad. But also in my student years, I came to film school knowing sort of the goal. So throughout creating work and also doing stuff outside of school, I put it into film festivals so that I'm also sort of part of the industry and learning it while I'm still learning and sort of sharpening my skills. So right now I am here with sort of a track record of having worked in film festivals, having won awards and stuff like that because I put myself in those spaces. But I'm also still, still learning. But yes, you can definitely text, email. I'll always respond or help out, or have you on set when I'm creating any work. And just to answer the question of how has it been, for me, I haven't sort of stepped into this in film. There's obviously different parts of it where there's like the commercial space, the reality TV, your live shows, your whatnot. But I've sort of taken the direction of creating sort of experimental work that goes to film festivals. That's sort of the market that I've gone to. And how has it been? I've really been lucky, or rather blessed, to sort of land in safe spaces with people who are able to guide me through it all. But in that section of film festivals and whatnot, and not really your soapies, your cinema movies, your commercials. So that's sort of like where I'm at. I'm in a space where I have people who are guiding me, and you know, I'm in a safe space. Let me say that.
And
If that
Matsep, there's one more thing. So I also told them about that platform. We'll have a session on that once you've got the time. You remember the session with that platform where you can submit your work that you've been
Yeah.
doing throughout your film school career or whatever onto,
Mhm.
you know, I can't remember what it's called. Freeway.
Film
What's it?
Freeway.
Film Freeway, yes.
Mhm.
So that's also a very nice platform, and I think we
Yeah.
can perhaps have a session on that, like you've done with that presentation you've done.
Yeah.
Maybe just to educate them what they can do with their work while they're still students, and get their work out there. Yeah,
And also to just speak back to that, the reason I did that, like putting work while I'm still in school, is because for me, I don't see any difference in like being in film school and being in the industry. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing, go through the same, like, encounter the same challenges. It's just the industry is doing it for actual clients where they get money, right? And then in school, we do it, our client is the school, submitting it to the school. We don't get paid for it, but we're all doing the same thing, really. I could be doing a project that's of the same standard as someone doing a project on for television, right? So me putting my work out there was just to really test that and just prove to myself that actually we are doing the exact same thing. I just happen to be in school, just happen to be working in the industry, but we are all like, it's really the same. So I'd also highly recommend and advise that you do put your work out there and sort of see it in this kind of perspective, you know.
awesome. Thanks. Matsepo, I'm gonna say I see we are running out of time. So do you have any other questions? And otherwise, I'm gonna love and leave Matsepo now.
If there
Cool.
aren't any, I'd just like to say thank you for the engagement. Thank you for letting me be in your space. Thank you. I hope you were able to take a few nuggets from here that'll help you in your future projects. And hopefully we get to meet again or
Yeah.
actually each other in person. But yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I think that would be very nice. Matsepo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Um, I'll have some feedback from them, but also if they have any questions, I will definitely have them relayed to you, maybe via email or so. But thank you so much, Matsep, and I will speak with you again. And everybody, thank you for joining in and being interactive and coming with your questions. It was very fruitful for me, and I hope it was the same for you guys as well.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. Bye bye.
Awesome. Bye.